So much was missing from our students' educational experience from March to May. We've talked a lot about the academic gaps created from remote learning, but just think about what the isolation from friends, some family, and teachers does to a young person still developing into who they are. That worries top educators in East Texas.
Part of this separation has been pretty impactful to the mental health and social emotional learning of students.
I'm certainly worried about the learning gaps that may occur, but more importantly, I'm more worried about the social and cognitive gaps that may occur. I mean, there's something to going to school every day.
I mean, the way that school is actually structured, it's really structured more about the social emotional learning than it is about the academic. I mean, what we do and how we come together is vital to how we keep kids healthy.
We need each other. I mean, that's the way we're built.
The coronavirus pandemic compromised social and emotional learning without a doubt for students. Schools certainly tried getting creative with virtual classes and even parades to reach the socially distant, but was it enough? The Morning Loop's Dana Huey finds out in tonight's Lessons Learned.
We all know that the information that we learn in the classroom, that's just part of education. Think back to what you learned in school through relationships, about life, yourself, working with others, and making tough decisions. Experts in the field tell me that social and emotional learning isn't a perk, but an essential piece to help students academically and later in life. And it should be a priority in the school year that will be unlike any other.
A lot of our students had made comments that had they known they would not have come back after spring break, they would have walked a little slower to get out the door.
Little did they know those school doors would close. White House ISD counselors Teresa Gray and Candy Temez worried what that would mean for students socially and emotionally.
I think our biggest concern in elementary was just the loss of those relationships. Our kids learn so much through social skills and through that supportive network of teachers and peers and counselors and everyone at the school, just, as a family, and to have that loss just really concerned us.
My biggest concern was not being able to have the students at our hands readily. A lot of times, teachers and educators, counselors are the #1 reporters for abuse.
The counselors found ways to connect with students, logging onto Zoom, sending an email, making a phone call, or in some cases, a house call.
We did do a few home visits with ones that we were concerned about, that we couldn't get in contact with. We went with one of our administrators and counselor, went to their houses to make sure that they were okay and had the things they needed, because they didn't maybe have the technology to reach out to us.
In terms of social emotional learning, I think right now more than ever, right, everyone is talking about what is the impact on our students, and not just their academic learning, but really what does this mean for their own emotions and how they're understanding themselves? What does this mean for how they're relating to others, especially as they've been physically distanced from people?
Justina Schlund, Director of Field Learning, works at the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL. It's a field that's been around for 25 years and is based on rigorous research. But to understand its impact, we need to better define social and emotional learning. SEL is the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions.
We've been working with districts and schools to implement it. We really see as sort of a systemic approach to how the school is actually doing learning, right? In a lot of ways, everything we do is social and emotional in nature. Like the process of engaging with a curriculum or learning about a subject in history brings up things for students naturally that causes them to connect that with my own experiences, with how I've connected with other people. And their learning is also really strongly tied to my relationships that I have with the other students in my class, with the teachers that I have in my class.
The effectiveness of social and emotional learning is compelling when you look at the research from CASEL and its collaborators. A huge meta-analysis of thousands of students across pre-K to 12th grade in 2011 and 2017 found that when students were engaged in high-quality opportunities for social and emotional learning that their grades in reading and math increased 11 percentage points.
There's a lot of science and research right now out there about how students actually learn and develop. And it shows that relationships, that the type of learning environments that they're in, that the attention to their social and emotional needs really is foundational for them to be able to engage really deeply in academic content.
But teachers say connecting during the pandemic presented new challenges for social and emotional learning.
I spent a lot of time trying to hunt down people that I wasn't hearing from.
Shelley Beaumont teaches Algebra 2 in White House.
You know, I'm around high school kids all day long, and high school is the time where you grow up and you start to pull away from mom and dad and start to interact with the rest of the world. And school is sort of a little bit of a safe, structured place where you can have those interactions under supervision. You can make connections with adults and people your own age, and you learn things like being a leader or, you know, just making good decisions and making good choices and things like that. I just think that's a really key part of growing up and a key part of any education.
And the threat of COVID-19 on everyone's health also brought to light some real concerns when it comes to equality and education.
There's lots of racial injustices and social economic inequities that are being exacerbated by the pandemic and this nationwide movement right now that I think are very important to pay attention to. At the same time, I think it's also important to recognize something that I don't think as many people are talking about, which is that there are some students actually who said, school didn't always feel like a welcoming place or a motivating place for me. And this new way of learning, which means that I'm more self-directed, which means that I have more interaction either with my family or community partners or kind of these outside of school experiences, may also be helping them to thrive in sort of new ways.
Helping children and adults thrive in this new world is something Castle and more than 40 partners are trying to do with their new roadmap for reopening schools. First, they recommend taking time to cultivate and deepen relationships, build partnerships, and plan for social and emotional learning.
Learning how to cope with negative feelings, deal with stress at their house, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about others, those relationships, I think is all intertwined. I don't think you can separate the learning from the social emotional part of education.
Also, design opportunities where adults can connect, heal, and build their capacity to support students.
We also not only want to be there for the parents and students, but for the teachers. They do have a lot of burden and maybe scared to come back to campus as well.
Create safe, supportive, and equitable learning environments.
I think for me, just giving our kids more time just to talk, just to express themselves, talk through what they've been through, and just giving them a safe space to talk with their peers too, because a lot of them have been through the same thing and may not know it until they have those conversations.
And Castle's last major guidance, use the data as an opportunity to share power, deepen relationships, and continue to improve support for students, families, and staff.
I think when we talk about the impact of on social emotional learning, I think it's really important to think about the varied experiences that are coming out of this pandemic. And I think as schools are kind of preparing to transition in whatever form back to this new school year, it's going to be really important to pay attention to these different types of social emotional needs so that they're setting up supports in ways that, one, address these complex needs that many students may face and help them kind of come back to schools in ways that allow them to bring their whole selves, right? And acknowledge that they feel stress and talk about their emotions and process this experience that they felt.
Leaders in social and emotional learning say don't underestimate what students and parents are saying to you, even if it's virtually, because the classroom of the future may not look like the classroom of today. We've got you covered, East Texas. Dana Huey, CBS 19.
We certainly don't have all the answers, but we're working to get them for you. You can email Dana any concerns or questions you may have about the state of learning during this pandemic. The address is on your screen. It's education@cbs19.tv.